Hey Antonio, thanks for posting in the Agroforestry Academy week group. Yeah, that's what it's all about. They're reaching out to us and let's exchange these ideas. That was a real good article there. As basically, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's basically about why, you know, so many people are not going through with agroforestry if it promises so much, if it's so wealthy and so healthy for the systems. Why, and there's some real good points there. Uh, on the back of that, that makes me think of a few points, around here, and how what's been happening. And basically, yeah, I think sometimes people are not following up on that, where they've gone to a course or they've received like a consultancy, or usually it's like a project where, like, a government project where people go in and implement an agroforestry in your house, with the local people. And then, we've got examples of that out in Africa, out here in Brazil. And you go there and you plant the plot, but a lot of the times, if you don't follow up on it, you go away and you come back a year later or a couple of years later or a few months later, and things haven't really, let's say, fixed. And people aren't doing that practice, they're not. So I mean, I believe that the follow-up is so important, because it's usually so much information to take in once you plant this plot. And even though they've been briefed about it, when you have to come and manage the plot, when you have to come in and start the pruning and returning all that matter to the ground, and if there's not someone there to show you on a regular basis, you kind of move away from, you just sort of, you tend to do things the old way, where people are so shy of bringing down banana trunks, and it's happened right here. We planted 10 agroforestry systems in the local community from our association. We got the funds from the government, the Brazilian bank backed all of this, and we planted it. And if you, I've been back there recently, and so it wasn't managed correctly. After that, we got all these big eucalyptus trees, and we got all these big bunches of bananas, and that's not, people missed the trick on that. What's the real trick on that? The trick is to, that's there to feed the system. So if you don't prune your eucalyptus, and if you don't prune your bananas down, then it's not doing what it's meant to, what it was planted for, which is to feed the land. And then they're looking at it and they're like, well, why do I want these big trees and this bunch of bananas here shading all my little seedlings? And like, because you need that disturbance of the forest, you need that clearance for that sun to come in, and then all that stimulation for all the trees to come out once that clearance in the forest, which is provoked by the pruning. This happens natural in the forest. We know that when the trees come down, and then there's a clearance, that sunshine comes in, and then there's opportunity for those seeds and other little seedlings to boom. So we really need to understand, to come back and prune all the plants that were planted to prune. And also, I mean, it wouldn't have worked if we hadn't planted plants to prune, service crops. We see a lot of agroforestry systems that they consider the main crop, the secondary crop, and they've got this nice, like, forestry system. But that sometimes people are not attent. They're not so attent to planting things that are going to feed back your system. Service crops. The importance of service crops, and who's going to nurture your seedlings, who's going to nurture your trees of the future, your fruit trees and your veg. Someone needs to nurture those. In our climate here, it's very clear that eucalyptus and the bananas are the perfect mothers, because within a year you've got a forest climate, and then you've got all this material to prune. You can prune them 4 or 5 times a year, if you really have that kind of manpower to come back and prune it. And the more you prune it, the more material you got, and the more. So if you don't follow up on it, you miss it. And then you're like, oh no, you know what, I'm going back to my old system, because I don't really know what to do with these large trees now, and this bunch of bananas is really getting in the way of all my other crops, so it's not really working out. So yeah, it's very important that we follow up and we help those people that we plant initially. So obviously in my case, We went there, the government gave us a bit of funds, we went there, we planted it, the funds are finished. So, we've got an association, it's 11 of us. And, people just go on about their lives. But, I've been back there this week as a volunteer now, obviously, because, we've got morals, we've got principles, even if there's no more funds. So I've been back there to make sure that they understand these principles and help them prune these things, and so they don't miss out the importance of the message. Because once you planted it, that's just the beginning. And once you pruned it, that's just the beginning. Because now you've got to prune more and more. But that's just that's the whole tick. That's the whole trip about it. You've got to trip out on this thing, on how much matter you can feed to your system. And that's the only way you're going to keep off the pharmacies, if you're actually using service plants where you're keeping your soil healthy. Otherwise, you're going to have to go pharmacy, you're going to have to buy fertilizers, because otherwise it's just sucking from your land, it's not returning. So service crops, and following up on that. Other reasons why people get confused, so you've planted this agroforestry thing, and then you get all these like government agencies coming in, and those agencies that support the producer. Those agencies, every country has their own agency that comes in and gives you advice and support. But mostly, they're like, they got their deals with the fertilizing companies. They're all being briefed to, sell you this fertilizer. And, they come out from, conventional academies, universities, conventional universities. Some of them, a lot of universities now have modules where they're talking about forestry systems. That's great. But, some of the older agronomists, some of them coming from, another age, a lot of them are coming in and they're saying, look, it's not going to work. We've got a project at Eloise's house. They're telling me you can't produce passion fruit in the forest. And it's so great to show them that we can, now that we've got the fruit. And it's just so amazing where Eloisa, this is another thing, another topic. We will bring her in now because we're talking about women in the forest. Eloisa, she's an old lady, I shouldn't be saying old lady, but she's a retired lady, and she really believes in it. And and there is a follow-up there. I do go there every few weeks, and she's keen, and she's cool to filter out all that information. She's cool to filter when people are coming in and telling her it's not going to work. And she's like, no, I'm with you, G. I'm with you, Gennaro. I'm with you, Felipe. You guys, this is the project from the beginning. Let's follow up on that. What's the next step? Let's do it and let's believe, But for her to believe in that, she would have had to seen a plot working where she believes in it now. So this is another thing. If you haven't got an agroforestry plot working, where nearby, where you can go and see and you can believe it as well. So there's another reason, like sometimes they come in and they planted it, but you're not fully on board because you haven't seen it to believe it. So you see, in Louisa's case, she's seen it, she believes it, so she's on board with us all the way, and she's cool to filter out all the other information. It's always good to hear other opinions, whatever, agronomists and university professors, whatever, that's cool. You always want to learn, don't we? So whatever I can capture from that, but we really got to be careful on filtering out where people say, this doesn't produce in this way or in that manner, it doesn't work. Even because most of the studies, they're not made in forestry systems. I always talk about this. We plant what we know goes well in our region, but we also plant what we would have liked to have gone well in our region, because maybe it does go well once you consortium it in the forestry system. Maybe the studies where governmental like research people, and they're like that doesn't work here, but that doesn't work here a lot of the times in the monocultural system where all those studies come from. But we can make it happen. We can plant cacao, we can plant acai in places where you wouldn't have thought so, because now you've got a forest around that to support those cultures. Yeah, and also, sometimes we've got like restrictions with like exotic plants and that. It's a controversial subject, and I'm not going to be like against you if you're happy to keep your garden and your fruit forest extremely with just local plants. That's fine, okay. But I personally, we here at the Academy, at the Agroforestry Academy, our teachings teach us that we've got to plant the plants who have the power to do it. These are the plants that have the power to recover this ecosystem. And sometimes these plants, they're not native, they're not local. Sometimes they're exotic plants. So sometimes as well you're restricted because you're like, you've got the fundings. I've got my sister out in Portugal. We do a project there, and she's got the funding to plant 2 acres of organic goji berries and physalis. But obviously we're making it a big agroforestry physalis and goji berry system out there. But some of our service plants aren't aligned with the fundings, the project, the government, which I kind of said, I'll give you the funds, but you're not allowed to plant that. Otherwise, you're not going to have the organic certificate if you're planting certain plants that we see as a danger, invasive plants. So these plants, sometimes they're invasive, but not if they're properly managed. But you see, it's usually these invasive plants that produce enough organic matter that has the power, the strength to feed our system, to feed back to the system. So it's not always native plants, and sometimes we're restricted with governmental agencies with what we're able to produce. Eucalyptus, the big villain, the big, the drought causer, the main cause of fire. We've so many videos about the eucalyptus, our beloved tree, and one of our most beloved trees. Eucalyptus has got nothing to do with drying up and causing fire. It's the monoculture system of eucalyptus. It's the way that we plant the eucalyptus that causes fire and drought. You know what I'm saying? So, eucalyptus used in a consortium with other trees is really such a beloved plant that, can prune the power of growth of the eucalyptus. If it wasn't so powerful, if it didn't grow so much matter, we wouldn't plant it. If it wasn't so blessed, it wouldn't withhold all that bad treatment that the monocultural system offers him. And even then, he's able to grow and produce wood for the mankind and for the city consumption and all of that. So, it shows how much power it has if we use it correctly, with the pruning and feeding back with the soil, So, if you're an organic producer in Portugal, for example, you're not allowed, your certificate will be removed if you're planting eucalyptus in your system. So sometimes there's that restriction as well, isn't it? And basically, if you're in with agroforestry, you can do it for the economical reasons. That's pretty straightforward. The maths add up, but it's got to be the tripod in it. It's got to be economically viable, it's got to be socially correct, and it's got to be environmentally viable as well. Okay, so it is a tripod. All 3 of them need to be sustained. I understand the economical viability is such a major factor in the whole thing. But I like to think, we learned from our teacher that, the top one is the environmental. And then we get to the economical. All right, so it's environmental, but the economical doesn't add up. Well, then that's not that's not viable, so let's work something else out. So obviously we always get to the economical, and it's got to be a-okay on that. But environmental is so important, just as or even more. It depends on your values there. Because our master Ernest Goch, our teacher, first-hand teacher, mine and Felipe's, where he's developing subtropical farming, which is even another step from agroforestry systems. First thing, you go to his course, and the first thing he'll say to you, listen, there's no place here for exploration. We're not going to explore. We're not going to extract more than what we're going to give back. So if you come here and you want to know how to extract the maximum from your land, then please, the door's that way, because there's no place here for that kind of agriculture. So that's what we're talking about, service plants. Because if you think about it, agroforestry has so much power to produce that if you don't give back, so you're just robbing, so how's that going to be sustained? That's not the principle of a forest. The forest is always returning leaves and trees and things. Within the years, things are falling, things are dropping, things are returning, right? The animals are doing their thing, right? The life in the soil that's doing their thing. So you're always returning to the land, right? And if you don't work with those principles where you're returning and you just want to extract, it's not going to work, because your land's very quickly, you're going to be very poor. You're going to extract maximum out of it, and then you're going to have very poor soils and very unhealthy trees very quickly if you're not returning. But we've got a solution for that. We explore, we extract the fruit and the veg, but that's why we've planted so many service crops. That's why we've planted so many trees to prune. We've planted so many nitrogen fixing plants, and we're putting so much wood on the ground so that fungus can work, and we've got so much root system, so the water's penetrating and all the fungus and everything is working. So if you don't give back, you're gonna hit a dead road. So some people are planting consortium of trees, all right, with layers and things, and it's a consortium of trees and it's all very nice, but it's not really gonna boom, and it's not really gonna be any different, like real prosperous, unless you got your service crops to feed back your system. And if you're all shy about giving back your wood, your eucalyptus, if you're all shy about pruning down your bananas and all your beans and all of them kind of things, if you're shy about pruning and feeding back and giving back and being a partner with the forest, it might not work out. And then soon you'll be like, all right, this agroforestry thing don't work out for me. I might as well buy all my manure, and I might as well bring all external things to feed the system. That's what you're gonna end up having to do. So man, I appreciate your post there. That was really interesting. I love that. And so yeah, I'm gonna link this straight to that, so keep them coming. And because the Facebook group, people are really shy there, but this is where you're gonna reach out to us, and this is where you're gonna get a response. And I wish to get a response back from this on that. So yeah, so we've got the Facebook page, but we've got the Facebook group, where that's the best place where you can reach out to us and make a video about your system, show us what's happening in your house, if there's anything we can do to help, if there's any ideas you want to share with us, anything you want to bring to our attention, where we can be like learning off you as well. In the Facebook group, it's called Agroforestry Academy Week, because we had the week thing, and then let's just keep it there because it's live. So yeah, from the Agroforestry Academy crew, if you haven't liked the channel, do so now, and we're all about it. Take care, till next time.